Alrighty, so this is our first Brightspace breakthrough. It's really hard to say, of the fall semester, and we're talking about the Zoom integration in Brightspace. So it's pretty self-explanatory. If we're talking about the Zoom integration, it's integrated with your Zoom account. So the first step would be, do you have a Zoom account? So if you go to like a new tab in your browser and you go to marywood.edu/Zoom, you'll get this nice little homepage where it has 3 buttons. You can join a meeting. So if you had like a meeting code you wanted to instantly add, that would be here. Then we have host a meeting. So if you want to actually host it, it'll make you sign in. And then sign into your account just lets you sign in general. So if you click on that, for now, the option to log in will be this sign in with Google option at the bottom. Now that will change, and when it does, we will communicate to everyone how you do log in, and it should be with your same like Marywood credentials. Like it should be super easy, but for right now, it's just this Google button. So you click the Google button, you click the account that you have a Zoom account with, and if you get this far, it means you have a Zoom account. So if you do not get this far, reach out to the help desk and they will set you up with one. You'll just get like a little email that asks you to go through and activate it, and then you should be good to go. So here I have just one meeting. I created this from one of my courses earlier today. So this is kind of a good stepping point to say whenever you create a meeting in one of your courses, as we'll see in a few minutes, it does show up in your general account. So if for some reason you just aren't logged into Brightspace and you still want to enter your meetings, you could do so through your Zoom account, just marywood.edu/Zoom. And you could also get like your meeting ID from here if you want to give that to your students. But with the integration, it should be pretty integrated. So I just wanted to give you a little preview of what the Zoom page actually looks like, and then we're going to go straight into Brightspace and show you how to connect it to your course. So I'm going to get out of here and go straight back to Brightspace, and I'm going to go to one of my courses. So click on the waffle icon, find the one you want to go to. So I guess this one. Once it opens, in your nav bar, you'll see the Zoom link. So you could just click on that. And I believe there may be like 1 or 2 prompts before you get to this page, but as long as you have a Zoom account, you should be seeing this little menu area. So every time you go into any of your courses, it'll look exactly like this. It'll have the Zoom up in the top left. It'll have a link for all my Zoom meetings, so you could look at everything that's in your account and not just for your course. Or you could schedule a new meeting just for this course. So that's kind of the nice thing about the integration is you can keep your meetings kind of segmented. So if you wanted to do office hours for like section 1 on a certain day and time, but for section 2, it's totally different. When you schedule those meetings within the course pages, they're specific to those courses. So your students won't see anything that you haven't created in that course. It's quite nice. The scheduling process is pretty easy. You just click this big blue button on the top right. It opens up a pretty basic schedule meeting page. So you have the topic, which is just the name of your meeting. So maybe this is lecture 1. You could put whatever you want in here, like when it's taking place or just what the topic is. And then any description you want to add to it is fair game. Then you have your when, so your date and time. So your date, you just click on the little calendar picker and you could either type it out or you could just select a date into the future. Obviously you can't do the past. So maybe I'll do like September 1st and maybe for the time I'll do 12:30. Now it's a little weird here with the Zoom meeting scheduling, no matter where you are in Zoom. You get to do AM or PM separately from the actual times, so just keep that in mind. And then the duration is over here as well. So the default's 1 hour, but you could change that to whatever specific you like. Time zone is set to Eastern Standard Time, but if you need to change that, it's totally doable. And then we have the recurring meeting button. So if you want to actually make this a weekly thing, which you might, do keep in mind it will keep this name if you do make it weekly. It'll keep whatever topic you put up there. So you could just say weekly lecture if that's the case. It'll say every day until the day you set. So the recurrence could be daily, or it could be weekly, monthly, or just a general recurring meeting. So it's something you could just hop into whenever you like. So most likely it'll be weekly. You could repeat it every 1 week, every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's just kind of whatever marker you put up here, that's when it'll kind of space it out. So if you're wanting to do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it might be something like repeat every 2 days, but then, end it on Friday, maybe do it for each week. That's just an example for like an online course. But if you're doing it once a week, I would say weekly, every 1 week it's happening, and then what day of the week is it happening? So maybe it'll be every Thursday. You could definitely hit 2 days. So if you did want to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you could do it this way. It would be like weekly, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week that's happening until this end date, or after a certain amount of occurrences. And this is something similar with any sort of calendar app. If you use Google Calendar, it does the same thing with your recurring events. So you could either select a certain date, so it could be the end of the semester, or it could be like after, if you want to do a 5-week stint, it could be after 15 occurrences. Whatever works for you. So I'll do it till the 10th. So then it's going to do it weekly on these 3 days, and then it's going to stop putting it weekly in the course on this date. So it'll then populate all of these meetings in your Zoom area until that end date. So it'll do it for you as soon as you press save. And of course, you could also do one-offs of this. It could just be a spontaneous meeting you want to set up, and you don't have to do the recurring meeting. But this is just an option. You could also set up things like the waiting room, and then have your video settings accordingly. I wouldn't do this authenticated users option just yet. Once we get the single sign-on, students will also have accounts, but right now they do not. So just be careful with this setting. You don't want to just bar your students from entering. But I do see there's a question. Janine, do you have a question?
Yes.
Sure.
So the end on option, this may sound silly, but so let's say it's set up as you have it, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then end on 12/10. If 12/10 is a Friday, does that mean it will still be scheduled for that Friday, and it will no longer be scheduled after, or does it end on the 9th?
That's a good question, and we shall see. I'll keep it this way to see if it actually makes it a meeting for the 10th. Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like if I were doing it once weekly, I'd probably stick to the occurrences more than the specific date, just to make sure of that kind of thing. But yeah, that's a great question, and we'll see in just a few. Any other questions so far? Okay. There's just 1 or 2 more things before you end up saving. We have our meeting options. So you can enable your students to join before you get in there if you'd rather them just kind of be in the meeting when you show up. You can have them muted upon entry. So if you're planning on just doing like a lecture and you want to just get started as soon as you get in there, you could have people mute as they come in so they're not interrupting the lecture. And then we have record the meeting automatically. So as soon as you, the host/teacher, enter the meeting, it'll start recording. So if this is something you want, so you're recording your classes, then keep this checked. Otherwise, you will have the record option when you're in the meeting itself. So you have those 2. We also have alternative hosts, and these are typically you can type in whoever you like, though if you have a co-teacher, like you're in a cross-listed section, there's another teacher involved, they're typically here automatically. So yes, Fran, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Riley.
Yeah.
Last year, when I would do Zoom meetings or Zoom class sessions and record them, I would schedule them through Google on my calendar, and the links would go to the students that way. Can I still do that, or do I have to? And I don't mind if I have to. I'm just wondering, do I only schedule classes, class Zoom sessions or Zoom sessions for the courses through this tool on Brightspace?
This is just an option, so it's purely optional. If you like doing it the way you're doing it, which is a good one because then you invite everybody and it puts it on their calendar, then keep doing what you're doing. But this is like a nice option, especially for online courses. You could just tell them to click on the Zoom link, and then all of their course meetings are there, and they could just join them from the course. So,
yeah. I mean, I don't mind doing this. I just didn't know if it was either or if it was both and.
Yeah, there is actually an option to import the meetings into this tool. So if you already have them set up, which is likely because we're almost at the start, you can import them into here if you want to give them the option to join from Brightspace, but otherwise, do what you're doing, do what you're comfortable with.
And I can still, this is a slightly different question, I can still record little lectures in Zoom and put the links into my classes? Or is it better to use the Brightspace tool, which I like? I've used that a couple of times this summer.
I think the only difference is that you cannot share your screen with the Brightspace tool. In the Zoom, sure you can, but if you're using the Brightspace video note, there's no screen share. So if you're presenting,
I wouldn't be able to show them a PowerPoint or slide deck or something like that.
Exactly, yeah. So for that, I would do Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'm gonna click save on this. So we're gonna see if Janine was right. So once you save on your meeting, whether it's recurring or just a one-off, you get the whole summary of your meeting, when it's taking place, what its name is. You can add it to your calendar from here if you like, which might be useful. You get your meeting ID. You can get your meeting invitation from here if you want to remind the students and send it out via email. You can copy that right here. Or you could also, edit the meeting again if something was wrong. You could delete it entirely, or you could start it right from now. So if it was something where you're making a quick meeting, you could start it immediately after you save it. There is the option for polling as well, though I think setting up polls is a little easier in the actual Zoom client. So when you sign in marywood.edu/Zoom, they're easier to set up over there. But you do have your option to add polls from this tool as well. So I'm actually going to click on course meetings up at the top here. It serves as our breadcrumb trail for the Zoom integration. So now we're back to our original page. So we have all of our meetings and multiple pages of them, obviously. Got a lot going on. So there is one for December 10th. So it does do it on that last day if that's part of the recurring description, which is good. Good for me to know too. And you'll notice that with these recurring meetings, they all have the same meeting ID. So if that's something you want to communicate to your students, recurring meetings have the same one, which is why it's nice to have them recurring. So other things you could do in here, you can see your upcoming meetings, of course. So things coming up in the future. You could also see any previous meetings you may have had in this course and any cloud recordings that you have for the course as well. Now for the cloud recordings, they only stick around here for 10 days. So what we recommend is that you download them and upload them to Brightspace separately, because Brightspace does seem to be able to take those Zoom recordings and present them as such. In Moodle, you used to have to put them in Google Drive and get the link. It was a whole process. But I'm pretty sure in Brightspace, we tested it out with like an 1.5-hour Zoom recording and it was fine. Might take a while to upload, but it showed up, so that's important. So that'll be here in the cloud recordings area. And then, like I just mentioned to Fran, there is this option to import meetings as well. So if you were to click over on this little like 3-dot option, you get the option to import meeting, dissociate meeting, which I just think means like take it out of the course specifically and just leave it in your Zoom account. And then you can manage alternative hosts. So if you're unfamiliar with Zoom, alternative hosts are just kind of like co-hosts. So in your stead, they can start the meeting. Until you, the original host, show up, they can do pretty much anything a host can do. But once you show up, they are just your co-host. So they can share their screen and stuff, but they can't actually poll the students. They can't actually, there's another thing they can't do. They can't poll and they can't do breakout rooms. But hosts can do everything, as is the nature of a host. So you can manage those alternative hosts here. That could be even outside of the university. If you have a guest speaker, you can invite them this way. But for the import of meetings, it just asks for your meeting ID. And if you're in your Zoom account just in general, you'll see that meeting ID in its own like column, so you can just grab that and stick that in here. And that's important if you have your Zoom meetings already set up for your courses, so you won't have to worry about hopping between them or sharing the invitations. You can kind of just keep them here in your course. Are there any questions about anything? Okay. Well, honestly, that's pretty much the whole spiel about the Zoom integration. It's really simple. I mean, literally we're here for 15 minutes, but I do want to show you what a student would see. Hopefully that'll work for me. So I'm going to impersonate my test student in here just to make sure that it shows up right. So say you make a Zoom account, or sorry, a Zoom meeting, and you're like, okay, we're meeting on Zoom this day, this time. Please use the Zoom link in Brightspace to access it. So they'll be like, oh, here's Zoom. Click on Zoom. And then they should see all of the meetings that you've made. So if you make them out into the future, they could see them. They could see the invitation, which is good for if they have to join via phone, because, you know, it'll show them the phone numbers they could do as well. It'll be down here in the dial by location. So if they need to call in, they have that option. They also have the join button, so they can start joining the Zoom meeting, which is super great. And then they could see any previous meetings as well, and the cloud recordings are available to them too. So just something easy for the students. They'll see it there. They can join it. But just like Fran said, you could do it through Google Calendar as well. I do believe that is a separate tool, but then you could add people as guests and it puts it on their Google Calendar. Or you could just make it through the Zoom site and send out the invitation via email. So whatever you want to do, just as long as you have a Zoom account, you should be good to go. So any questions before we wrap it up here? Or all right. Well, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
you.
This was really great.
Thank you, Riley.
Of course.